This is the Your BIPOC Writing Coach podcast, and I'm your BIPOC writing coach, Lori L. Tharps. I'm a journalist and a former tenured college professor who moved to the south of Spain so I could live a global literary life. I'm also an award-winning author of both fiction and nonfiction who believes in the transformative power of a story well told. I created this podcast because I want to help as many BIPOC writers as possible get their stories out of their heads and into the world. Are you ready? Let's go. This is the Your Famous Author Era season of the podcast, where we're talking about how to promote your work as writers, building an author platform, and finding the fans who will buy, read, and support your work over time. On today's episode, we're going to learn how to launch a debut memoir in 2 countries with journalist and author Robin Allison Davis. Robin is an Emmy Award-winning producer based in Paris, France. Experienced in all forms of media, she has over 15 years of producing and script writing experience, including a news and documentary Emmy Award. Her book, Surviving Paris, a memoir of healing in the City of Light, was published by HarperCollins Amistad in September 2025. During our conversation, which was recorded just a few weeks after her book debuted, Robin shares all of the joys and challenges of launching a book on 2 continents. Robin is based in Paris, but the book has an American publisher and is in English. We get into the logistics of how she planned book events in both countries, what it takes to successfully launch a book in today's market, from finances to fashion to mindset, and how to stand out as a memoirist when you're not a celebrity. You might want to take notes because Robin drops some really great resources and ideas for anyone preparing for a book launch. Are you ready? Let's get to the interview. Welcome to the Your BIPOC Writing Coach podcast, Robin Allison Davis.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you. Before we get started, I always like to tell people how I know my guests. And Robin is a member of The Sanctuary, the private membership community that I founded for BIPOC women writers. But also, Robin came to my 2023 writing retreat in the south of Spain, and then in 2024 in Portugal. So I've had the pleasure of watching the 3rd trimester of Robin's book coming into the world, and it's been a treat for me. So before we get into the conversation about book promotion and publicity, Robin, I'm wondering if you might just share what being in community with other writers, like why is that important for you in your writing practice? And do you belong to other writing communities other than The Sanctuary? And if so, why?
When I first got my book deal, I spoke with my editor. I got my book deal via Amistad. Abby West acquired it. And I had my deadline. And she said, "What do you need from me? What can help you finish the book?" And I said, "I want to find a writing community," because I didn't have one. Up until that point, doing the proposal and everything else that I've written, I did not have a writing group. And she put me in contact with Lori because she's like, "Oh, I know Lori from our time when we were working in journalism, and she has something. She has a retreat coming up." And I was like, "Great." So I don't actually think I did much research at all. I think I was just like, "Cool, I'm signing up." I really just took her word for it and went for it. And at the time that I showed up at the retreat, I had a draft of the manuscript already. And it was so good to get other people's, to listen to how other people work and to be encouraged by other writers, other people that are doing the work and understand what it's like. And then also it really helps you with accountability. Of course, I was on deadline, so I really had accountability. I was going to have to pay money back if I didn't finish. But being with these other writers really pushed me not only to finish it, but of course have it to be an even higher level than I ever aspired to. And it was very helpful for me. And since then, I have, of course, joined the Sanctuary, but I'm also a part of Black women writers in Europe. And I went to their retreat, where also we workshopped. At that point, I think it was maybe the first chapter of the book. I was much farther along in my revision process. And that was helpful. And I've met some really great friends through that group, especially because they are based in Europe. So it makes it a lot easier. We see each other more often. And I'm really grateful to be in a community of writers. I've also joined another writing organization, which is just European based. There's nothing else. If you're just in Europe, you can join it. Blanking on the name right now. But that group also, they do a lot of open mics and things like that. And people aren't necessarily novelists. We have a lot of poets, and there are a lot of people that do flash fiction and different things like that. So you learn so much being in a community of writers. And it really pushes you to continue even when you're not on a deadline, because you're like, well, why am I stopping? Let me just keep pushing forward. Let me just keep creating and see what happens.
I think you know this, of course, Robin, that I'm so pro writing community, something that I didn't have for all of my writing life. So for me, since starting the Sanctuary, I too have realized how beneficial having a writing community is to keep you going, to keep you motivated. It's not something that is a one and done. Oh, I needed it just while I was getting that book done or something like that. And we're going to come back to that because community also comes in the promotion of our work. We tap into those communities. But before we get into that, I want to start really getting into the nitty gritty of how you are promoting your debut memoir, Surviving Paris. Specifically, I wanted to have you on to talk about how one promotes a book in two countries. Or you could look at it as, how does one promote a book when they don't live in the country where the book was officially released? But before we get to that, I did an episode earlier in this season on Frederick Douglass and his 7 tips for literary stardom. People don't realize that he had these tips. He didn't write them. I extracted them from his life. But the first tip was, you must write a really good book. Frederick Douglass wrote 3 memoirs, and his memoir was a slave narrative. He wasn't the first Black man to write a slave narrative, and yet his was a bestseller. His was the one people not only were talking about during that time, but they're still talking about it, right? I mean, universally appealing. So tell the people, Robin, what makes your book amazing? Why do they need to read it? What's your elevator pitch to get people to want to read this book?
Well, there's really nothing out there that exists like my book. My book is about living in Paris as an American expat. And yes, there are a lot of books like that. But are there books by women of color, by Black women, who also have gone through breast cancer? Not just once in Paris, but twice in Paris. And the second time during a pandemic. So just that alone is different. But when you think about it, also the title is Surviving Paris and not Surviving in Paris, because it's about all the different things that come with expat life and moving and making a big change to shake up your life. I had to find community in Paris, finding work, all the crazy apartments I had, dating in a different culture, all these different things. So the book covers a lot. I don't like it when people say, oh, it's a breast cancer book. Yes, breast cancer does happen, not once, but twice in the book. But it's really about what happens when you push past the fear and you decide to change your life. I personally think it's a great book. I'm a little biased, but that's what it is.
Honestly, not because Robin is in the Sanctuary and I think she's a wonderful human being. Her book is really good, which again, makes it a lot easier to hit the road and tell people that they should read it. But really, it's a fabulous book that does, as she says, it's not just a move abroad book. It's not a cancer survivor story. It's not just a I love France, like let's talk about French culture, but it is. It's all of those things. And again, it has the unique perspective as a Black American woman, which It's ridiculous because Black women have been moving to Paris for a really long time. And yet our stories are not embraced by the mainstream publishing industry as other people stories have been. So it really is a unique book. And yet it's going to be so relatable to so many different people because there are so many entry points to your story. So let's get into the promotion aspects, Robin. Now, we are recording in early October, and the book came out in the middle of September. So it's not really fair that I'm asking you to define how does one do this, but you're off to such an amazing start. I have checked, if I'm not mistaken, you've done events on 2 continents, multiple cities, on a boat, and you were on French television. And mind you, again, it's been about 2 weeks since this book has been officially out. So what was your original kind of definition of success for the book? And like, what was going to be your approach? Like, what was your kind of thinking of dominate both countries, more in the US, less in France, both equal? So just kind of give us your mindset. What were you thinking about how the promotion plan was going to be successful?
Well, of course, when you set out to write a book, your first thought of success is bestseller lists. And I really had to redefine what success is going to look like for this book, because a bestseller list is great. I'm still hoping for it, but coming out in September, which I know is the hardest month to come out with a book, I'm up against some heavy hitters, some big, big heavy hitters. So I really had to redefine that. So for me, my idea of success with the promotion is to find my audience, to be well received, to be able to talk about my story in multiple cities and be invited places to speak. So I think that I have achieved that level of success that I was looking for. And my number one success marker is to get a second book deal, but that's down the line. You want your first book to do well enough that you get the second book deal. So that's the process I'm going for. But when I looked into promotion, I knew that I was a bit, I don't want to say, I guess, behind the ball living in France, and my book is publishing in the US. There were so many things that I could have done if I was living in the US the whole time, but I wasn't. So I said, okay, well, one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to try to get French press if I can. And so I did. French rights have been sold, but it's not translated. So it's available at English language bookstores in France. So while that was nice, I know that my number one market is the US, where the book is coming out. And I decided to hire a private publicist. And that was very helpful for me because I needed someone else on the ground. Of course, I have the HarperCollins publicity team, which has been amazing, but I wanted someone else dedicated just to this book to really work with me while I'm far away. And I wanted to be someone who is responsive and someone where I'm not wondering, oh, what are they doing? Are they doing anything? What's going on? I need someone to be there for me. So I did that, and I decided to do a Paris launch rather, in Paris, of course, on a boat, as you mentioned. The boat did not move. So it's a paniche. So it's like a docked boat. I don't want people to think that I was on there swaying and all of that. It's not happening. So I had that party, and out of my own pocket, paid for it, had a bookseller come in, but I invited my Paris community because I really just wanted to celebrate. And also I knew that inviting people to come to a party a few days before it comes out in the US, all the people who are Francophiles are going to see all these Paris people that they follow on Instagram are posting about this Paris book. There was some party in Paris that they all went to, and it was fun. Let me check out this book because I like Paris. So yes, there was a little bit of strategy with that. And then on the day of my launch, I had an event at Human in New York. And then the following Saturday, I had an event at Politics and Prose in DC. So it was 3 events in 1 week's worth of time. And that was a lot. I am exhausted. But it's been helpful to have my publicist. It has been. But also, I do want to note that I work as a television journalist, and I've had to use a lot of my contacts as well. So me and my publicist and the HarperCollins publicist, all three of us are going full steam ahead. And that's really what it takes to get eyes on books. If you don't have that like trade buzz or anything like that, you've got to push hard to get eyeballs on your book. Because again, September, really hard time to get eyeballs on the book. So I'm pushing forward. I'm calling in all the favors. I'm doing what I can. And I think it's paying off.
Can we just back up 1 second? Because some people might not be aware. Why is September such a hard time to get eyeballs on books?
So I don't know the exact science of it, but for whatever reason, September is when a lot of the very big books come out. Elizabeth Gilbert's Memoir came out the week before mine in September. Hoda Kotb had a book that came out the week after mine. Tremaine Lee had a book that came out 2 weeks before mine. All of these are very big books. The big kind of books that they expect are going to do really well come out in September. And that's one thing my publicist told me. I was like, oh, well, this person made the bestseller list and this person made that list. She was like, yes, but it's not September. She's like, you've got to remember, it's not September. That's very different. So it made sense for my book to come out in September. I'm happy it did because of the lead up to Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But it's a tough month. It really is.
Yeah, and it is the kind of preview month for all the big book awards, which happen in November. It's award season. The National Book Awards come out. The bookers are announced. So people are talking about books, which is good, but they're talking about, the big award-winning books. And people often release in September, and then they're still eligible for those big November prizes. So it is a challenging time, but we do what we do. But these are the things that people need to be aware of when you're thinking about book promotion. If your publisher is gives you a choice, do you want to come out in summer or would you want to come in fall? Or we can have you come out in fall, or we could wait until January, February, and your thinking might be, no, I want to come out now. I want to come out now. And it's like, actually, you may want to wait because you won't be competing with, as Robin said, the big books that come out in September. You're also competing with back to school things, and you have a short window before people dial into Christmas and the holidays. And if you don't have a cookbook or Santa's going somewhere, you're forgotten. There's this particular window that you just have to have, like Robin said, real focus to get those eyeballs on your book in September. So, Robin, you already mentioned that you didn't want people to think this is just a breast cancer book. What other challenges did you feel like you had to go, not the distance part, not speaking about the geography of it, but you're writing a memoir and you're not a celebrity. You have this idea of potentially people thinking it's a cancer book only. What are the challenges that you were thinking about, and how did you change those challenges into opportunities?
I think my number one challenge has been the breast cancer part. And honestly, I think part of that is a hang up that I have personally, that I don't want people to see things as sad because I don't think it's a sad book. And trying to make people think differently about the book, highlighting the fact that, yes, I'm talking about dating. Yes, I'm talking about all these different funny things that happen. And there are some people who get it and there are some people who don't. With breast cancer, it's a little strange. The way they package things, they want it to be very happy and very pink and very feel the boobies, save the boobies and make it sexy. There's nothing sexy about breast cancer. There really isn't. So yes, it is a part of the book, but I'm talking about so much more, and trying to get people to see that has been difficult. And also wellness is a big thing now. Everyone's into wellness. However, what I found is that the wellness space is not interested in a breast cancer story. So that has been a bit jarring for me. I find that people, when they talk about wellness, I guess they're thinking about everything that you do to maybe not get cancer, which, as we all know, what are you really doing? So that is something that actually really hurt me, that I was a bit pushed out of the wellness space. So that's been a big challenge.
That is incredibly disappointing to hear. And it's something that, as we're thinking about, what are the spaces and audiences that we think would be ideal for our book, and then it doesn't work out that way, or we have to pivot, we have to like change course and be very nimble. And that happens a lot in this journey of promoting our books. You know, we think this is going to be the audience that's really going to be receptive, and they're not. And I know, Robin, you're still so early on this journey, but have there been any spaces or audiences where you were actually a little surprised that they were actually very interested in your story or your book?
I did a lovely interview with NPR with Norman B. and his podcast, Life Elsewhere. He loved the book. Oh,
tell the people who Norman B. is. I'm not familiar with
Norman B. is a white British man who is older. And he read the book and he just could not stop raving about it, how much he loved it. And I was like, wow, I did not expect that. I did not expect that at all. But it was such a joy to do that interview with him. I mean, he really got it. And sometimes when I read my reviews also, which I know I should not do, I know I shouldn't. Today's the first day I have not read any reviews. So that's how hard it is for me to not read them. But when I read the reviews, there are so many women who connect with it who are not women of color. And I find that they are the ones that are really, really pushing the book. And I find that to also be very interesting because I wrote the book how I talk. Like, I'm not code switching in the book. And so it's great that it's appealing to, I guess, a wide audience. That's really what I wanted. So I'm glad it worked because you just never know.
Well, that's the universal appeal of memoir. It's like we're connecting over shared stories, shared emotions, and shared experiences. And if you can reach people, that's the beauty of a book. I mean, yes, you're a Black woman, but as I'm reading, I'm just reading your story and I'm connecting with it. And that's what we were saying earlier, that there's so many entry points for your story, for this book.
And there have been a lot of men that have really enjoyed my book. It's funny. My editor was just like, oh, men are not going to read this book, so that's fine. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And then my friends started sending me pictures of their boyfriends and husbands reading my book. And how much they loved it. And I was like, yes, let me start a series of men reading Surviving Paris because they were into it.
I mean, we're chuckling, but think about, I think I spent my 20s reading Jon Krakauer books, right? And
Yes.
I just met somebody who I really liked, and we found out we both like Jon Krakauer, and we're like, oh my God, I really like you. We both spent our 20s reading those books. So yeah. So when we say like, oh, men like my female perspective memoir, that shouldn't strike us as odd, but it's the world we live in. Okay, patriarchy. Another story, another day. So one of the questions I had also, Robin, for you was, you mentioned that the book is in Paris in the English language bookstores. Is there a difference in doing book promotion in France than in the United States in terms of like, where, for example, do you do book events or how you promote them? Or even, you know, you were on a French TV station. So is it different, and how so?
It is different. It's very limiting in terms of book promotion in Paris because you are essentially limited to the English language bookstores. And not all of them want to carry your book. We want to talk about surprises. Some of the places where I've spent hundreds of euros did not want to carry my book. Yes, I was very upset about that. I was very, very upset about that. And a lot of places where maybe I have bought membership told me they weren't interested in doing anything with my book. So that has been very heartbreaking for me, if I'm honest. But I do work with the Red Wheelbarrow Bookstore, and I did my party on the boat with her store, Penelope. She's Canadian. And I did it there because she has a shop, but I knew I wanted to invite tons and tons of people. So that's why I did it there. But she often has book events, and you can do a book event, I believe, at Shakespeare and Company. And there are a few places. There are a few, but obviously it's not as massive as in the US, where there are tons and tons of English bookstores, of course, where you can do events.
Yeah. And you said you worked as a television journalist and you were on TV. I assume that that's also challenging because most of the media would be in French. And I'm not saying that you don't speak French, but I'm saying, are you going to promote a book in English to a French-speaking audience? Is that challenging as well? Or were you able to get more media?
Well, I didn't really push for a lot of media in France. I did get the show France 24, which is, they have an English channel. So I was on their English channel. And that way people that understand and read English can pick up the book. But it is difficult because I don't want to say I don't see the point, but I can promote it in French. But if the book is not going to come out in French, it's very limiting. I have a lot of my friends who say, well, I want to read your book, but I don't really read English. So is it going to come out in French? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I sold the rights, but we're still waiting. So when I go back to Paris, yes, I will be pushing for more things in Paris, hoping that maybe that will push them to translate it. But as of now, I've got a few events in Paris, and it's mostly with the Anglophone community.
And that also was a Frederick Douglass tip, was to actually consider foreign readers. It could be Anglophones living in other countries, or it could be in England or in Scotland or any other English-speaking country. Because you're in Europe, have you thought about taking the book on the road to other European countries or to the UK?
Oh, I would love to. Someone in the sanctuary, one of my sister scribes, actually linked me with a bookstore in Lisbon. And I would love to go and do an event there. I'm interested, of course, in the UK. I haven't sold UK rights yet. I think that is a little bit of a hurdle. I would love to sell UK rights because I'm in London all the time. So I would love to take the book on the road. That is my plan for Europe, but it just has to all align and make sense.
Well, definitely listen to my Frederick Douglass episode, because that was his strategy, was Ireland, England, Scotland, and Wales. And he did such a great job, like gangbusters, that an Irish publisher was like, we'll publish your book. Like, we'll create an Irish edition or a UK edition. So I really want people to consider foreign audiences, so to speak, because just as you noted, the white British man who was the podcast host, you just don't know where you're going to find your audience. So speaking of which, as I suggest you do a European tour, you already hinted at it before when you said you hired a publicist, but I would like to talk about money. Regina Brooks was on the podcast. She is a well-known agent in the US, and she was saying that quiet as it's kept, the difference between best-selling authors and not oftentimes comes down to money. That you need money to travel, you need money to hire a publicist. And I don't need you to tell us how much you spent or anything specifically, but can you talk about that a bit? Like how money plays into what you're able to do, what you had to think about even as you planned your tour, and or if there are things that you had to pay for that you didn't even think about but were necessary.
The money question. Well, I will say my father is a financial planner, and I am very much his child when it comes to money and planning and budgeting. And I also believe very strongly that it takes money to make money, which is terrible, but it's very, very true. So I was ready to spend money.
I think that's in the Bible.
Yes, it must. If not, someone needs to pencil it in. Yeah. But I knew going into this that my book advance, which was quite modest, it was not going to be spent on like buying myself something nice. I was going to save it because I was going to need it to promote this book. Because I do have a lot of friends who are authors. And one thing they told me is that the publisher will not do as much as you think they're going to do. And also, as someone who's a journalist, I already know how hard it is to get eyeballs on anything. So I knew, okay, I'm going to set aside a chunk to hire a publicist. And my publicist is not a crazy amount of money. I did talk to some who were a crazy amount of money. I was not going to pay, for instance, $30,000 for a publicist. That was a bit too much. But I did pay for, as I said, my Paris event. I'm paying for all my travel. But also, I have a credit card where I get points. So, and it has no foreign transaction fees. So I've basically been, for the past year or so, only using that credit card, stacking those points, paying it off every month, but stacking those points. And I'm flying on points actually this Friday to Atlanta. I'm getting a hotel in LA off of points. So that is one important thing to do. And then also staying with people, having friends in these cities that you're going to. You have to be strategic with where you're going, but you still make mistakes. I have one trip that I'm doing, which is not the best use of my finances, but I've agreed to it, so I'm going to do it. But I really wish I could just save that money instead. So it is a lot of money. It is. And then on top of that, one of my friends who's an author, she said, make sure you set aside for hair, makeup, all these different things, which I'm doing as well. Every time I have a TV appearance or something like that, I'm getting my hair and makeup done. That is a cost that you need to consider. Unless you think that you're good enough to do your own makeup. I mean, I don't know everyone. Maybe you are, but I'm not. I'm not. So I'm paying for all these things as well. I paid for promotional materials. I made postcards that I shipped to people in the US while I was in France, and they put it in coffee shops and in bookstores and things like that before the book came out. That was an expense. I made a stand-up banner, which was at my Paris party, flew back with it to the US. That'll be going to all my events. That was also an expense. These are all things that you can write off, but it's all money. It's money. And if you have enough buzz or you're picked by Reese or a GMA or something like that, perhaps you don't have to spend much money. But I was not picked, so I'm spending money.
Robin, I love what you said about taking your advance and just investing it in the promotion. I think that is the smartest thing people can do. Unless you have a credit card bill that's so high, someone's coming to repossess your home. Use that advance to invest in the promotion because it is an investment. If this book sells well, then you get the next book deal. If this book sells well, you get royalties. I mean, it really does come back to you if you use it well. I mean, I'm just putting pins in these for people to really pay attention to. You know, people might think, yeah, travel, but hair, makeup, postcards, these things do matter. We do live in a society where everybody's going to want that photo, the Instagram, and not like if your hair isn't done, no one's going to buy the book. But at the same time, if you make an impression, people remember you.
I think also I kind of lean into the whole thing. Again, having my television background, appearances do matter. And there is such a thing as pretty privilege. Terrible to say, but it is. People respond better to someone that they think looks nice. So I have invested in that because every little bit helps. And like you said, you're going to be on people's Instagrams. You're going to be on people's social media. So you might as well look good while you're on it.
And if you show up looking camera ready, if those images come up, guess what? You can use them. You don't have to go do a photo shoot. You can make every event a photo shoot that is the one that will use for the next one. I've seen your photos from that Paris event all over the interwebs from yourself and other people, and they look great. So again, you're saving yourself the effort of doing a photo shoot or, you know, where am I going to get pictures for X, Y, or Z? Mm-hmm. You can use those that show up at your events because you've taken the time to plan your look. And while we're talking about planning your look, Robin has been looking so amazing at every event that she's made me, who does not pay attention to fashion, like, look at her outfits. They're all really cool. Do you mind sharing your secret for all of your cool outfits?
So I wanted my outfits to be in the color palette of my book because I think it's really cute when people match their book. So for my Paris party, I did purchase a dress that I actually saw in an airport and it matches the book very well. But for the rest of my stuff, I've been using Rent the Runway. And buying an outfit for every event is just not, I mean, it doesn't make sense financially. But if you have a Rent the Runway account, I pay, I think, $170 a month and I get 2 shipments per month, which is 10 different items. That's a lot. You get a lot. You get bang for your buck. Because if you are doing these events and you are photographed so much in that one outfit, sadly, in this day and age, you don't want to wear it again to the next event. So why am I going to buy something that I can't keep re-wearing? And so that's been really, really helpful for me. Although I do need them to kind of up their number of like pink and orange items because I'm really running out. So
Pro tip, Rent the Runway. You want to sponsor this podcast? Okay. Like authors using Rent the Runway. I bet that wasn't your target market, but hey.
That's true. That's true.
And let me just say, for people who don't want to rent the runway, you have two options. You can pull a Steve Jobs and show up every single time in literally the bookish t-shirt and blue jeans. And it's just like, oh, there's her uniform. Or you can try the Rent the Runway and come up with something. I love the matching of your book cover. Remember that when your publisher is showing you possible book covers, ask yourself, do these look good on me? All right. As we start to wrap up, we talked about money and we just hinted at social media. How important is social media in your promotional plans, Robin? And is there a platform that you think is really good for helping you with promotion? So just give us your social media take.
I think Instagram has been good for me. I've gotten quite a few followers on Instagram. People take pictures with the book. I repost it. Bookstagrammers get the book and they talk about it and I repost that. So that's been good for gaining followers. I don't know the numbers on awareness, how it raised awareness of the book for people. I do know from my insights that some of my posts are seen by 85% of people who do not follow me. So there are a wide number of, I guess, strangers who are finding out. Threads has also been good. I'm not using Blue Sky or X, and Facebook is still mostly the people that I already know. I don't think that I'm gaining that many new followers or readers from there. What surprised me was Substack. So I started my Substack in January, and, it's been fine. I've had like 100 subscribers. 150. And one of my friends told me that she started posting a note every day. And I was like, well, I'm just going to post notes when I've got, something to say. I posted a note about my Paris party with a picture of me holding the book in front of Notre Dame. It went like a little bit viral. And so many people have commented, I didn't know about this book. I'm going to pick it up. And I've gotten so many, my followers have doubled since that note. So Substack has really, really been incredible. I was like, wow, why was I sleeping on Substack? I had no idea. And it makes sense because people who are on Substack are readers. They're writers and they're readers. So they are used to reading longer form things and it's no big deal to them. So that's really number one tip. Get a Substack and post on the notes.
Fun fact, we're going to be doing a notes challenge in the Substack for all of the members because notes are where it's at and notes are a really good growth method and you've just proven it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So everybody get on Substack. Haha, if you're not already there. All right. Is there any role model for your promotion that you've been looking at, like another author that you're like, everything they're doing is really top? It's what I want to do, the success they've had. Or are you literally starting from scratch since you're doing this from two different countries?
So I am not starting from scratch, but there is one writing community that I forgot to mention, which is the Discord group for 2025 traditionally published authors. Now, I found that group via Reddit, which sounds crazy, but like in the pub tips subreddit, people were talking about being traditionally published and someone was like, oh, there's a Discord for them. And I reached out to the person. I said, can you add me to the Discord? And oh my goodness, how many of us were there? I don't know, over 100 of us from all across the country, all across the world, really. Everyone has a traditionally published book coming out this year. And we follow each other on Instagram. We like each other's posts. And I really like what a lot of them are doing. I will also say at every single event I have had someone from that Discord group show up. Wow. And that's been great. Even one who's like a New York Times bestseller, she was at my Paris party and bought 2 books. And it was so great to meet her in person. And I had 2 friends that showed up in New York And it was crazy. We said when we met in January, none of our books had come out. And now all of our books are out. Like, this is great. And I had someone show up as well in DC. So that's been wonderful. But in terms of finding kind of a North Star whose publicity and promo I liked a lot, I will say Rachel Phan. So Rachel Phan, her memoir came out this year. It's called Restaurant Kid. And she is Canadian. She lives in Toronto. She's also a journalist. And her book is very good, by the way. You should pick it up. But I like what she's been doing on social media. She had really no social media presence before the book. She was off of it. But on Instagram, she started posting a lot of things about herself, a lot of things about her writing process, a lot of things to expect in the book. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. She was hopping on trends. And she's gotten acclaim for her book. It's been covered by like the CBC and a lot of Canadian press, some American press as well. So looking at what she did and talking to her, because she and I talked quite a bit about the whole process, that has been really helpful.
One of the things that you mentioned when you're talking about community and how that's been helping you with your promotion, and also you mentioned the tour stops that you went on from the beginning. These were all places where you had community. I mean, you live in Paris, you're from DC, you worked in New York City for a very long time. How has your own community helped with the promotional efforts of the book? Like, specifically, what did you ask of your community, and or what has your community done to help get the word out for the book?
I find that it is important to have a very specific ask when you are asking people for support. Because when you just say, it's almost like the general, when someone passes or something, and say, oh, let me know what I can do. And it's just like, okay, well, that's very general. You need something very specific. So having a specific ask is very helpful. So I sent out an email. Well, my family also sent out an email to all of their friends and their network. Here's how you can support Robin. And I had on there, please order my book from the library. Ask the library to have my book. Post about it. Here's something that you can post when you post about it. Here's pictures if you want to make your own post about it. All these different things. If you think I would be a great speaker for an organization that you're a part of, here's how they can contact me. Here's how I'm available. So all of those things have helped, as well as people just coming out to the events as well, because they always say every author has an event where no one shows up. I'm terrified of when that's going to happen to me. So I'm always asking people to just show up if you can, because for the most part, the events are free, and really just being there is very, very helpful, helping me have a full room, because that also helps for when it's posted on social media. You don't want to be seen speaking to an empty room.
No, you do not. That is the worst. You have to like live it over and over again.
Yes.
Okay. And you know what? You just actually answered my last question for you, which was, what do you need for people to do to support you? You can answer if there's something you didn't say in there, but I think it's so helpful what you said is that specific ask. It's not just buy my book, please. There's so much more. Is there anything else that you would add that, let's say, the stranger who's just listening to this episode, what can they do to help you achieve success?
Number one, of course, would be to buy the book. That's number one. And please buy the book from a physical bookstore if possible. And also adding the book to their Goodreads is very helpful, or their Storygraph. That's very helpful. That's something free that people can do to help. And then just telling people about the book. You can write the best book in the world, but if no one knows about it, then where do you stand? And so trying to break through the noise is honestly the number one challenge. So if anyone can just tell people about the book, tell as many people as you can about the book, then that helps me immensely.
I was listening to somebody speak about book promotion, and she said this thing that so simple but was so profound. It's like the thing that authors really need is for their books to be read.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't really talk about a book convincingly unless you read the book.
Mm-hmm.
And when you read the book, you can fall in love with the book, and then you start talking about it. You tell everybody. or you tell the people who you're like, they're going to love this book or they need to read this book, right? And again, that all starts with awareness. People can't read the book if they've never heard about it. So if people want to hear about the book from you, Robin, where should they go to find out when you're coming to a city near them or going to be on a podcast or anything else? Where can people find you, see what's going on with the Surviving Paris tour?
The number one way is my Instagram, which is Robinista, Robin, I-S-T-A. And of course, I also have my Substack, which I spoke about. The URL for my Substack is survivingparis.com. That will bring you to the Surviving Paris landing page where there's all the information about my upcoming events. And then also you can click on the home tab where you'll see some of my writing as well.
And of course, we're going to put all of the links for Robin's social media, website, Substack. It'll all be in the show notes. Just out of curiosity, when did you say you started that Substack?
I started the Substack in January, I think.
So well before the book came out.
Yes, that was important to me to make sure I start writing and start getting that following prior to the book coming out. And it's a free Substack. It's not, there's no payment or anything like that.
All right. So before we let you go, very last question. What would be your one bit of advice for a memoirist with a book coming out to get more eyeballs on their book?
I will say, I think that memoir is very specific, where memoirists read a lot of memoirs. And the common thing that you hear about publishing a memoir is, oh, you can't publish a memoir unless you have a platform. They only want famous memoirs. It's so hard to publish a memoir. And it is hard to publish a memoir. But I obviously did it, and I don't have a platform. So when you do see people saying these types of things, break into the conversation and say, well, my book is coming out this date, whatever. I don't have a platform, and it was still possible for me to do this. So don't give up. I've given a lot of people encouragement in that way. And then they're like, wait, you have a book? Who are you though? And then they look you up and then they want to read your book. I think it's important to get that out there to let people know that you don't have to be a celebrity to get your memoir traditionally published. So at the same time, you're encouraging people, you're giving advice, but then you're also getting more eyeballs at the same time.
It's a win-win, and we're supporting our fellow writers. Robin Allison Davis, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story and all of these great suggestions and behind the scenes information about what it takes to get a book out in 2 countries. Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
All right. Did you get some good tips and ideas from Robin? I hope so. She really did drop some gems. Am I right? Here are some key takeaways I hope will help you shine during your famous author era. Number 1, get help if you need it, even if you have to pay for it. You don't have to be launching in 2 countries, but if you have ambitious plans for your book launch, find someone who can help you achieve your goals. Number 2, use your book advance money to invest in your book promotion. You will thank yourself. Number 3, Substack is a great place to find and build an audience for your work, because the people on Substack are already locked into the idea of reading more than 140 characters. But remember, start the process early to build the buzz before your book comes out. Number 4, ladies, Rent the Runway is your best friend, so you can look stylish on your book tour and save money. Number 5, probably the most important thing, support other authors. Authors tend to be readers, and when you show up for them, they often will show up for you. It's the circle of literary life. And no, I'm not going to start singing Hakuna Matata, but it is running in my head. All right, I'm going to add one more tip, and that is find your literary community. Robin mentioned that she is in several different writing communities, each one serving a different purpose in her literary life. Now, I launched The Sanctuary because I realized how important it is for writers, myself included, to have people around them who understand the joys and challenges of living a literary life. Regular people, God bless them, can be well-meaning, but writers need their fellow scribes, especially BIPOC writers. So, if nothing else, find a writing community, or 2 or 3 like Robin, and lean on them for advice, accountability, and resources when it's time to launch your book into the world. Remember, if you'd like to find out more about Robin and where she's going to be on her tour, you can find links to all of her online accounts in the show notes. And speaking of show notes, in the show notes, you can also find the link to the Read, Write, and Create website. That's at REED, writeandcreate.com. That is the one-stop shop for inspiration and information to optimize your literary life. On the website, you can sign up for the Read, Write, and Create newsletter. You can find the links to our social media handles and my new YouTube channel at Literary Lori. And of course, you can learn more about our amazing community for BIPOC women writers, The Sanctuary. By the way, doors will be opening to The Sanctuary at the end of November, so make sure you get on the wait list to be the first to find out when we start taking applications. If you would like to make a financial donation to help support this podcast, you can do so by buying me a virtual coffee. The link is in the show notes where you can donate. Now, if a monetary donation isn't possible, which I completely understand, mind you, buying me a coffee is only $5, but if that's even too much or you just don't want to donate, that's fine. But another way you can help support this podcast that's even more meaningful than money is by just sharing this episode with another BIPOC writer who could use a pep talk. Honestly, my greatest marker for success for this show is knowing that it's reaching the maximum number of BIPOC writers possible so that they feel inspired to keep putting their work into the world. Thank you. The Your BIPOC Writing Coach podcast is written and produced by me, Lori L. Tharps. Our editor is Brad Linder, and our theme music is by Wataboy. Until next week, keep writing. The world needs more BIPOC stories written by BIPOC storytellers just like you.